Hey crafters, DM Scotty here. Good to have you with me on the DM's Craft. Today I want to talk about a strange phenomenon that happens on our tables when we have battles. The brave adventurers come out and fight the monsters, and they slay the monster, and the monster just disappears. It flashes and disappears. Almost like a video game. Well, in a real battle, that wouldn't happen. There'd be corpses littered around all over the battlefield, and they would be somewhat impeding combat, because you have to deal with that bloody mess that is left after you defeat your foes. So what I did is I came up with a system to simulate that. Now I got this idea from Ben's RPG. I was watching one of his videos and I saw that he was using corpse tokens to mark where bodies had fallen. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So in true DM Scotty fashion, I couldn't just use pre-gen or pre-made corpse tokens. I had to make my own. And I had to make them as gory as possible. So today I'm going to show you how to make those corpse tokens and how I utilize them in combat. So let's go to the table and we'll start crafting. The basis of my project are going to be these washers, and these are 1-inch washers. They have a 1/4-inch hole in them. They're steel, and I like the washers because they give these tokens some weight, and that's a nice thing. Also, if you want to use some kind of magnetic stuff in your games, these could work great because they're attracted to magnets. So if you do anything like that, that's great too. Okay, so. Now, what's nice about these boxes is there's 100 in here. So I spent maybe $7 on this. So I've got 100 of these that I can use for this and other projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a few. And I've got a piece of cardstock here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these washers to the cardstock. So I've got my handy glue gun here. And I'll start doing that. All right, so I've got those glued to my cardstock. Now what I need to do is separate them from the cardstock, so I'll just grab some scissors. Cut those. So now I'm just going to cut around the edge, and I've got a ready-made guide because the washer's on there. All right, perfect. So I've got the washer capped with the cardstock. So what I'm going to do now is I will cut the other ones out. Generally you want to make a lot of these at once. I'd say like a dozen. Since you're doing it anyway, you might as well. I'm going to cut the other ones out, and then I'm going to paint them flat black, and then we'll come back and talk about how we're going to decorate these to represent corpses. So see you in a sec. Have my black washer here. It's all ready to go. So now the question is, what color am I going to paint it? Because basically it's going to be like the floor, and then I'll show you what I'll do. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do for the body itself, the corpse itself, but this would be basically this disc would represent the floor that it laid on. So you could do 2 different colors. You could do like a gray. But I'm just going to do like a brown because it's kind of an all-purpose color. And when to tell you the truth, when I put the rest of the stuff on here, you're really not even going to notice. So, of course, there's always going to be naysayers that, oh, it's got to exactly match the type of dungeon or whatever that you're in. But by the time we get done, you're barely going to see this color anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and go with the basic brown. So I just got my burnt umber, which is a dark brown, and I'm just going to put that on there. And make sure you get the edges. See if I can do it without painting my fingers, which I usually can't. So there, I got the edges. So now I'll let that dry, and then we'll move to the next step. I want some variation in my base, so I'm going to use a little bit of nutmeg brown. So I got it on my paint, and I'm going to use a bristly brush to kind of give it that spotted texture. So I'll just jab that into the paint. Kind of like a dry brush technique, except you're just kind of jabbing it down as opposed to pulling it across, because there's no texture to hold on to. So I'm just going to kind of and that's all there is to it. I'll give you a little closer look there. See the nice texture we got. And remember that the paint will darken a little bit as it dries. So every time you see when I do something immediately in the paint, the color looks a little different. Will look a little different when it dries because it will darken up. So, all right, there we go. So now we'll do the rest of those, and then we'll move on to the fun part. Here's my base, and it's all ready for the next stage. Now, the thing about the that you want to do with these is, for the corpse tokens, you want to have a nice little marker, but you don't want them to be too obstructive to play. You want figures to be able to still stand on them. So the solution I came up with was to use my Liquitex flexible modeling paste. And what I'm going to do is I'll open that, and then I'm just going to use my this little sculpting tool that I've used quite often, just a cheap little tool that I got at the craft store. So I'm going to grab a glob out of the flexible modeling paste jar, and I'll just plop it on there. And that's a little much. I'm going to grab some of that off. And then I'm just going to kind of splatter it around the Now, one thing you can also do is, a lot of times the flexible modeling paste will dry a little bit at the top. So you can get like kind of crusted little pieces. Just stick it in there. All right. So we got that. So you just do as many of these as you want. And there's, enough texture on here to give it some interest, but not to make it too impossible to stand on, or actually to stack on top of each other. If you have a pile of corpses, they're trying to get past you in a doorway or something, and they just keep piling up. So kind of get a little gruesome there, but hey, we're not playing Mario Brothers. All right, there we go. I will let this dry, and then we'll come back and we'll add the paint detail to it. Here's my dried disc. The modeling paste is all dried on it. It's been about a day. So now I'm going to use a couple reds to bring out the gore on this. I'm going to use a cherry red, and the other one is this is a cherry red, and the other one's a fire engine red. So I'll go ahead and start painting those. All right. There, we got that. So now I'm going to put a little bit of highlight. I'm going to go ahead and put it on while it's wet. So I'll just grab some of that lighter red and just kind of all right, so there we go. Now we'll move on to the next step. Now you can see our token looks pretty gory. All the red is dried on that. So there we go, looking pretty nice. But it's still missing that little extra oomph. And what I'm gonna do to give it that is use some water-based varnish. And this stuff will give it a nice gloss, icky look. So I'll just grab my varnish, stick the brush in. Won't be able to see this off camera. And all I do is just pop it on there. Spread it around on the gore. And if there's some areas on your stand that aren't, the gore is not on, you don't have to put it on the whole stand, but there you go. So there we go. So we'll let that dry, and then it'll look suitably icky and mushy, and we'll be ready to demonstrate how these work. Here's our first battle setup, and before we get started I wanted to give you a little close-up of the GORE token. So it came out really nice there, and the nice thing is it has a washer on the bottom so they won't slide around or move much. So what we do is you have our pile near the board, and it's kind of nice. You can designate a player as the corpse master, and they can lay the tokens down as you remove the enemies. So say our characters are exploring a dungeon, they come around a corner and they get attacked by 3 enemies. Okay. So we got a combat going on there, and through skill and luck our adventurers managed to kill one. So we remove that one, place the GORE token there, and then they kill another one, place the GORE token there, and then they kill that one and place the GORE token there. So now, before they move up, another round of guys come running in from hearing the noise. So depending on initiative and everything, it could end up where either the enemies are on top of the GORE. And see, it's not a problem. The guys can pretty easily stand on this stuff, so it's not a problem. So say they fighting again and this one dies, you could just stack another one right on there. Say this one dies, you can just stack another one on there. And say this one dies, you can stack another one on there, and so on. And if they start to get too full, you could just kind of make the pile start to expand like that, so it becomes more and more of a hassle. So now your object as a DM is to determine, well, first off, do you want to use these? And second off, what kind of penalties would be associated with it? Now, what I think is fair is you could make these difficult terrain. I mean, have somebody lay down and try to get past them and see how difficult that is. Or actually have them lay there and then you try to fight around them, pretend like you're fighting, and see how difficult that would be if there's a corpse laying there where they're trying to stand. So, people can say, oh, that wouldn't hinder you much. Well, yeah, it would actually. So, and blood's oozing out and the floor is slippery and, that kind of thing. So, yeah, so, keep that in mind when you use these tokens. And this can set up all kinds of interesting strategies. I generally give, if they're fighting on the corpse tokens, a -2 to hit. So if the enemies come up and they're standing on the pile of corpses of their friends who died, they're getting a -2 to hit. Now, if they stand back behind the corpse pile and say they start using missile weapons, and the fighter wants to get up there in combat, he may have to come up on the corpse tokens and fight. So now he's at a disadvantage unless he wants to stand back and shoot his much less superior weapon. So interesting tactical situations can come up. So let me show you another setup and how we could use these in a different scenario. So say we have our characters coming into this situation. They're coming up some stairs, and there's some rubble here on this tile, and some guys jump out and fight. It could be the stairs actually go down here, so there could be a guy standing here, maybe shooting something at the characters or something. So if they kill these guys, then the corpse tokens get placed, here. So the characters kind of have a choice. They can move through that, that and get into the main room, but that can be difficult terrain. Also, if they try to come up this way, that could be difficult terrain too, because it's rubble and stuff. So, and if there's more enemies and the fight, proceeds, there could be, different, corpse tokens around.
And you know, if somebody's, you know, killed a lot of enemies and they're like this, you know, an enemy's going to try, you know, an enemy, you know, is going to maybe try to go around and not fight on, you know, where the gore is. He might try to go around, you know, here, maybe even get an attack of opportunity by the player character, because he doesn't want to stand, you know, in the bloody mess and, you know, take a negative to hit. So, well, you know, in his eyes, you know, it's going to be harder to fight, not negative to hit. But anyways, in game terms, it'd be a negative to hit. So, you know, that can be, and it can force the players to move too. So I like these because they can force the enemy or the players to move where they may not have moved, just because they're going to take negatives if they fight for standing on the corpses. So there we go. That's a great way to use corpse tokens. They're a little, you know, they're a little gory and messy, and some more game mechanic. And, you know, hence they would take more time in the game. But I think they're really cool, and they add a fun element to the fight. And you know, it can be kind of fun to show how many, you know, especially if you're fighting minions or something, how many like bodies are piling up on the battlefield. You know, because basically, you know, normally it's like a video game, they just disappear, but you know, in reality they really wouldn't be. There'd be bodies littered all over the battlefield. So that kind of gives like a visual representation of the, you know, the gore of the fight. So I really like this. And I'm gonna continue to use it. And then if anybody else is interested, there you go. There's how I do it. So I'll see you next time on the DM's Craft.
Hey guys, if you're really digging these videos and would like some more information or to talk to other crafters, look at the link below in the description, and you can join my forum on the DM's Craft. We'd love to have you, and I'll see you there.